Mm-hmm.
All right. So, Elliot, welcome again. It's good to catch up with you. How's the week been?
The week has been fine. Thank you, Kunde. The week's been fine. It's gone up and down,
I can imagine with
but
all the,
generally
yeah.
it's been fine.
Strange. I mean, this NSAS thing, it's been a very big one there in Lagos. I try to catch up all the time, but I see that it's spreading. Luckily, that's the topic we're discussing today. Actually, the topic we're picking up today is the issue of police and the security in general in Nigeria. So let's get started. I wanted us to start by talking about this NSAS. In your opinion, what was the root cause of this? And before you respond, let me try and lay some ground, at least from somebody looking outward in. I got an email from a few of our guys, people sending stuff on WhatsApp and saying, well, it's the political class that didn't do this, that, and the other. For me, I'm not sure. Okay, I understand that we have a problem with SARS. There's no problem. I don't think anybody disputes that. In fact, what I said to one of our guys is that, well, the issue of the Akko 6, if you remember that incident, was a major watershed for me in Nigerian policing history. And I'm not sure that problem has actually been adequately resolved. So there's definitely the issue of police brutality, non-accountability. So do you think, what is, in your opinion, do you think this is what this is? Or is there a little more than that? I mean, because now when I look at the looting and all of that which has then gone on, it seems that there were other issues which are just coming up. What are your thoughts on this?
Thank you, Kunle. I'll start by addressing and providing an answer to your question. Was this all about NSAS, or there are other things that bubbled up from the surface? I would say the answer is no. This wasn't about NSAS. There was a demonstration or a protest called NSAS, but that created an opportune environment for a lot of other things. They moved. For me, what we're dealing with in terms of the aftermath of NSAS, in terms of all the looting and the rest of it, is the SARS in all of us can be taken one step further, because SARS, I would say, it's now a governing umbrella or a word to describe our relationship with one another and our relationship with our society. Whatever we say is wrong with SARS or what SARS promotes, individual, right? It's our relationship one-on-one. Collectively, we see it in police brutality, and we see it in the behavior of the police. Now, the irony of it is folks were marching and demanding for change to that behavior.
Okay.
But in the larger context of the society, that behavior persists, and that's why we have the looting we have today. That's why we have the maiming, the arson, and killing that goes with it. We do not know how to be receptive of the other. We do not know how to respect the other. I think fundamentally, until the individual living in the society in Nigeria realizes that even if it's a small child you're dealing with, that child demands respect. And courtesy.
I agree with you. I looked at this issue actually, and I said to a few of our guys, the guys who were having discussions with, I said, look, whatever we say, there's been a protest which has been going on now in Thailand simultaneously for the last 2 weeks. Yeah. Now that protest movement in Thailand, dates back to the dates of Shinawatra, if you remember that guy, when they removed him as prime minister. So this this process has been going on and off for 8 years. But when you look at the protests that they've had in Thailand, which this recent bout, which has gone on for 2 weeks, I don't see anybody looting or burning things down. I saw some of the pictures from the Lagos bus, the lag bus thing, brand new buses, which were supposed to help our people. And somebody touched all those buses. It really worried me. Okay, but I think, like you rightly said, there's something to be said about respecting ourselves and understanding the fundamentals. Like some of the guys I was talking to, I was saying to them, look, the Arab Spring, there were 9 countries that participated in the Arab Spring. Yeah. If you look at any of them now, can anybody actually say that any of those countries were better off now? Anybody? Apart from probably Tunisia. Yeah. And it comes down to what I've always said to people. You're not going to make any change by rushing things. Change is a gradual thing. Anybody that tells you that is going to be successful making a fast change, they are lying to you. The most successful fast change that happened in the world is probably the Russian Revolution. Yeah. They went in, the White Army, they kicked out everybody. And it lasted what? It lasted 70 years, but even that still unraveled. So nobody's going to make any change quickly by just going down and tear the system down and burn it. The system is resilient. The only way to change the system is to work with it and change it gradually. I think, anyway, enough said about that. I cannot end that segment anyway without bringing up the issue of losses of life. I think personally, and I want to hear your view on this, I thought the government was, however, very wrong to bring in soldiers that quickly. One day, what was your thought on that? And I don't think that area was handled properly.
So I'm on ground in Nigeria, right? I have my personal opinion. Now, let's make an assumption that, they brought in soldiers. If it's true they did, then if it's true they did, then it was very, very not immature and wrong of government.
Okay.
Because the provocation, the desired outcome of the provocation was for you to use stronger tactics.
Correct.
Right. And so if it's true they brought in soldiers, then they lost the plot.
They lost the plot. I see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But personally, I still think I'm still looking for more evidence, right?
I agree with you.
I have seen shells. I have seen videos. Now I need to understand. I need to see bodies. I need to understand from where those videos were taken. There are still fundamental questions that needs to be answered. Then, when we truly know what transpired, then we would apportion blames. I think running to the press to say this was well transpired. If it's true government did that, then government has failed.
I see your point. And, the first headline that I saw was that, 49 people had been killed at Lekki Tollgate. Then it went from 49 to 79. And then it went to 12. And I think it's some of those things that actually stokes all of this looting and all of this, do you understand, rioting. It brings me to the question of how do we regulate the issue of social media? Because for me, again, if we're not careful with this thing, it's going to tear everybody down. It's going to tear everybody down. If we are not careful with how we manage social media, things that are being put on the social media, what can be done in your experience or in your view?
Well, it's a difficult one for me.
Yeah.
I think social media is a force of good. I think media generally is a force of good, irrespective of its platform.
Correct.
Now, just like every other thing, it has to be managed. Information has to be managed. Even in the most advanced of societies, like in the US, right? There are rules of engagement and rules of laws, and there are rules to media, right? So you'd have to manage it. Now, considering the level of illiteracy that we find in our society, our case is peculiar because you have 200 million people, of which 60% of them are young, So it's about 100 million individuals, all of them having smartphones at hands, which is a weapon, if you ask me. They can create content, they can disseminate content, and they can do anything with it. Now, if you understand what it takes to rile or incite individuals, so what you've given 100 million people is the ability to incite themselves.
Yeah. And that for me is where I worry a bit, that if you have all of this and there's no control at all, and obviously it's not a Nigerian problem, it's a global problem.
It's a global problem.
It is a global problem, but there's got to be something that has to be done to manage this a bit, because there's a lot of that, and it's a major security risk for all of us. I mean, there will be time to talk about all the outcome of this protest. I mean, you heard things like people trying to attack other people's estates, I saw some videos from Bode Thomas, how everything in Surulere has been destroyed. I mean, you cannot go out with the Benin prison break and the one in Okitipupa. So the list.
Hello, is your network okay?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Is your net? Yeah, it keeps dropping off.
Ah, I see. Sorry about that.
I think it's my network. It's okay now.
It's okay now. Yeah. So, I mean, overall, I think that was the major issue for me on this. On this SARS riot. I think it's something that we need to look into. But then I come to the next question. Next question for me is about police reforms itself. Do you understand? I've always said it for more than 10 years. I've been saying this about the Nigerian police. We cannot continue to treat our police people like animals and expect them to treat us different. Do you understand? You are well aware of the police college in
Ikeja.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. If you remember, when Jonathan was president, there was a visit he took to that place once, which was aired on channels, and it was a complete eyesore. People lost their job on this issue. Do you understand? Oh, because we're trying to embarrass Nigeria. But the problem was that place was completely run down. It was completely done. You know, every time you go towards Ikoyi from VI from Ikoyi, and you go past Falomo Bridge, you look into the police barracks, into that place, and you can see the life that these people live. So, what can we do to reform our police? In terms of adequate compensation, in terms of adequate training, in terms of equipping them, what can be done? I mean, I'm not trying to apportion blame. I'm just trying to understand what can we actually do, because complaining is easy. Everybody can complain, but what can we do to change that narrative?
So there's a lot to be done. First, we need to understand that policing is a profession.
Okay.
It's like engineering. It's like law. It's like everything. And the only way you attract great lawyers, like medicine, the only way you attract great minds to those professions is you make it interesting. You make it look right for them.
Okay.
So if we want the best people in policing, then we also understand that we need to make policing attractive to them. That's one, as a profession.
Okay.
Now, remember that policing cannot be private practice.
Correct.
It means that it becomes through taxpayers' money.
Correct.
That will pay for their services. They render services. That services be priced at a very minimal level, right? Because it's communal, it has to be priced. And once it's priced, part of it will go into taking care of their welfare.
Correct.
Now, there is a lot to be done. We need to look at all of it holistically and say, okay, what is policing for us? What do we expect them to do? Right?
Yeah.
If policing is expected to do this, it goes down to how much do I pay as task? How much do I earn and how much do I pay? For me to sleep at night, it means what? It's 8 hours of my time, so I have to pay for it.
I see your point. But let me
I
take
go
you
to
up on
bed.
one of the things you just said now. So one of the key things I took from what you just said now is the issue of that it's a communal service. It's something that is tied to the community. So but if you look at the current police structure that we have in Nigeria, we don't have police. We have a federal police. No. So how does
Yes.
that work? I mean, can we restructure that federal police, or we need to split it and make it a communal service, like it's done everywhere else in the world?
Yeah, so policing in general, it's not federal, right? So it's the part of the misnomer with our federation. It goes back to what we discussed yesterday.
Hmm.
Who is best? Who is best situated to police me that I stay in Lagos, Nigeria?
Hmm.
In fact, policing in Lekki, a police in Lekki cannot go and do an effective job in Ikeja GRA.
In Ikeja GRA, I see. Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So it has to be someone who stays in Lekki, grew in Lekki, understand Lekki nuances, understands the people in Lekki, understand the weak points or penetrable points in Lekki, and renders that services to Lekki. And you cannot pay him the same way as you pay a police in Abeokuta. They are different.
Correct, because the cost of living is different.
The schools in Lekki are different from the schools in Abeokuta.
Correct.
So you can't pay them the same thing, and the guy has to stay in Lekki and send his kids to Lekki, school in Lekki.
It's a major problem. I agree with you completely on that point. And I mean, you know what? The only thing that I don't get is that why do we struggle with this? Because it's the standard everywhere in the world. You go, I mean, that's why you have a Chicago Police Department, which is different from a New York Police Department or whatever. If you go to the UK, it's different. You have a London Metropolitan, which is different from a Manchester Metropolitan. Everybody says this. So I don't know why we cannot pick it up. Now, I'll tell you why, what I've heard. People will say, oh, if you bring policing to a state or local level, the people at that state and local level will abuse it. Okay, so is there something that we can do? Now, at least we know the concern now, why they don't want to do it. How can we address that concern?
So there are tiers of policing, and that's why I tell people there are I'm not an expert in this field.
Correct.
But I have consistently seen, haven't traveled, that there are tiers of policing.
Correct.
Policing is different from National Guard.
Exactly.
National Guard is different from military.
That was the next question, but I will come to National Guard. Please finish this thought, yes.
Yeah, policing is different. And even at that, you need some element of federal police, like an FBI.
Correct.
Now, it's just the status and statutes that differentiate. And there are some crimes that are federal
police, and some are, yes, correct.
So there are boundaries.
Correct.
So a community crime or a community police, I stay in where I stay. If we abuse it, it's all of us in that community that will abuse that policing service.
Correct. I see your point. I agree with you completely on this. Yes, please go ahead.
When you now move into political crimes and state crimes and federal crimes, that's been dealt with totally by different policing service with a different act.
Yeah. Clear.
Now, fundamentally, what Nigerians have not told you in their fears is we are not law-abiding. We do not respect
the law.
So, the law. So you may have that law, and somebody one day will decide that, well, let me empower the community police, and the community police can say no, even if I have it under my care, I will go against the federal police so that's
where we're struggling. I see.
That's why we're struggling.
I see. That's a new take on it completely. Because what I've always said is, the politicians will abuse it. They will abuse it. I'm saying to people, is the federal not abusing the police as it is today? They are. So but I see the point that you're making in terms of, we're not really law abiding enough, and we will not be able to honor those segregation of segregation
of duties.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Let me come to the issue of the National Guard. You know, I mean, because everywhere you go in the world, in the civilized world, there's a National Guard. US, France, Spain, UK, everywhere there's a National Guard. I remember when I was during the Babangida years, the concept of National Guard came up. My understanding at the time, and I could be wrong, but I want to understand what you think about this. My understanding was that this NSDC, or what they call those guys, are supposed to be Nigeria's National Guard, right? There was a discussion on National Guard under Babangida. What happened?
Yeah, we took it out, right? So remember that there are other fundamental things, right? So part of the things Nigerians struggle with is what every society struggles with: trust.
Okay.
It's like a marriage in your family. The moment the trust between the wife and the husband is broken. There's never peace. Because you second guess whatever the wife does or whatever the husband does. Exactly. If you're in a forum and the trust is broken, there's never peace. Anything the leader does, the members will say, no, I don't trust them. So Babangida's National Guard was because of the lack of trust. When he says he was creating National Guard, Nigerians remember that this man has moved the goalposts, and they said, oh, you want to use National Guard to perpetuate yourself in power. His argument then was, well, you can't bring the military for civil disturbances.
Exactly.
In a democracy. And civil disturbances are not police crimes. You can't also use police to quell civil disturbances.
Okay, but I mean, Elliot, you make a very, very good point there. This is a very good point. I understand that. But now tell me something. I mean, when we were kids, I remember the 1983 elections when we had a problem, Shagari. There used to be something they called the mobile force, the MOPO, right?
MOPO, yes.
And when we had those MOPOs, I remember MOPOs in Second Republic, 83, at least late 83, August, I think the election was August 1983. And we had a major riot in Ondo State. You guys had a bit in Edo at the time.
Edo?
Yes.
Bendel.
Yes, in Bendel, old Bendel. But the major problem was in Ondo, and I remember MOPOs coming into Ondo State. They arrived in lorries, they had anti-riot gears, they had full everything. Everything you see in the civilized world today, the Nigerian MOPOs had in 1983. So if we had a standing disturbance anti-riot squad in 1983, which is almost 40 years ago, how is it possible that we don't have one today? Or
well, remember,
what happened to our MOPO?
So remember, because of the kind of crisis we've had, evolution, right? So remember, we had mobile police on the MOPO, and after a while, they were merged with the police. When the military came, they were warm.
Correct.
And MOPO started taking authority from the police. It wasn't elitist anymore. It was what it was. And
it was what it was.
Military rule for a long time, and they were underfunded like every other thing.
Correct. I think you're right. I will sorry to interject you there. I remember that under Shagari, you know, when they created the MOPO, one of the criticisms they had at that time was that he was trying to create an auxiliary force which could checkmate the military. You understand? They were adequately funded.
Military.
Yeah, exactly. They were appropriately armed. And so, like you're saying, when the military came in, it was the opportunity to get rid of these forces that they thought were competitors with them, basically. This is what you're saying.
And after a while, they created SARS, because SARS, to a large extent, was supposed to be doing. But I think the attention of policing moved into anti-robbery. I still do believe that until you begin to have issues, remember that SARS came during the just before the PDP era, when we started to have kidnapping, certain kind of crimes,
serious crimes,
and serious crimes, and they created SARS to address that. But remember that the police force has not changed. It's a 300,000 unit police force. Every time you create new thing, you take away from, you cannibalize another group
Existing
within the
units.
force.
Yeah, I see. I see. I see.
You understand? It's not.
I see.
It's not like you've grown to be make it a 1 million man force. It's still a 300,000 man force.
I think it's a good point that you make because, like you're saying now, if there are 300,000 people, do you understand? I mean, I've seen a statistics that says there's only one police officer to 4,000 Nigerians, something like that.
Yeah, just do the calculation.
Exactly, which is completely.
If we're 150 million divided by 300,000,
yeah, it's ridiculous. Whereas in most countries, they tell you to go for a ratio of 1 to 100 or something like
1
that.
to 100.
1 to
and
150.
you cannot, and the federal government cannot keep a 1 million man police.
It's too big for them. Exactly. It's too large a force to manage. I see. Very good point. I come to another issue, which has been, what is going on in Zamfara? What is going on? Today I wanted to cover police and security. What is going on in Zamfara state? This has been going on for a while, and why can't we address it? Today I saw they killed another 20 people in Zamfara.
I don't think you can address banditry. I don't think you can address. I think Boko Haram has grown past what we think. Banditry has grown past what we think. There are crimes, yes, but I think they've come to stay with us. So let me tell you the truth. The generation out there, I don't know the statistics, but a lot of them are into all sorts of drugs.
Correct. I've seen this firsthand myself, yes.
All sorts of drugs. So what you find in Zamfara, you won't have it here. The only thing is, it's still not clear to us. We don't have a border town with the northern Niger and the rest, right?
Correct.
We have border town with Benin Republic.
Yeah.
And close where the cities we have border town with, they have ports there, so they have thriving business or businesses.
Correct.
If you go to the Maghreb and you go to South Sahara, right, Niger and the rest,
correct,
those are all farmlands.
Nothing is happening there.
Nothing. It's desert. They don't even have cattle. They are rearing. So you have, and these borders are not closed. They are open borders.
Exactly. You just preempted my next question, but please finish this. Yes. Yes.
They are open. So the first time I went to Niger on a business trip, I knew how backward we are in Africa. You need to go to N'Djamena and you realize it's one road.
That's it.
It's one road. They have maybe 2 good hotels. There's no internet.
Oh my word.
Do you understand? You need to understand why they would gravitate to the Zamfara.
To Zamfara and the Kebbis and the Bornus. You know, I think I see where you're coming from. Yeah. But tell me, let me throw it out there. Okay. Now I know this issue about border wars is not popular, particularly with Mr. Trump in the US. But does Nigeria need a border war there? Can we do a border war? Because, and I'll tell you why I'm asking this question. See, for me, as long as people are able to go in across the borders and bring in arms unchecked, you understand? They can do a hit job and run away. You will never be able to control this Boko Haram or all of these other security issues. You need to be able to contain.
And that's where I was going.
Exactly. So what do you think?
Now, but the border wars, right, Kunle, like every other thing, it's easy to see it and imagine, oh, we'll put a border wall, but you know what's the square miles you're dealing with? How much would that mean in terms of real money? And I think wherever that idea will drop is real money, because you're looking at, even if it's a gate and you would feed with electricity, you're looking at billions of dollars, right?
I agree with you.
This is a country.
I agree with you.
This is a country that can't. fund anything.
Yes, but you see, this is where I think, I mean, I'm not in power of a position of authority, but these guys who are not doing anything, who are, do you understand, who don't have a job, yeah, and due to no fault of theirs, do you understand? For me, this is where we can harness the energy. Do you understand? I think, and I've always said it, I keep repeating it to people. The only way, most of the problem we have in Nigeria today are related to job creation. For me, it's about jobs. This is number one. And there are only two sectors that can address this job issue: construction and agriculture. Do you understand? So somebody says to me, okay, what is the border distance from Borno to Zamfara, for example? Easily 1,000, 2,000 miles, 1,000, 1,200 miles, easily. Do you understand?
It will be a lot, yeah.
A lot, easily, it will be a lot. And basically, we can employ 10,000, 50,000 people just doing manual labor to build, to build it. Do you understand? We build labor camps for them. You bring the guys, they do the work. Every month you pay this guy 20K. He leaves that area with a lifelong skill, i.e., is a bricklayer or is an electrician. He leaves with a skill, one. Two, by providing him money, you give him 20,000, whatever it is, 30,000 a month. It's not a lot, but at least he can save it. At the end of that project, he has chunk money to start something with. Number three, do you understand? He develops a community. There will be also other smaller businesses that will cater for their own services on their needs in that area. So I think, seriously, it's about time that we consider, at least in the most porous areas where there are no natural defenses, to see whether we want to do a border wall. I think it's something that our security guys need to look into.
Yeah. I also think so, because, the truth about it is that whole area is a desert. So you look at, just take it from Zamfara, which is from Old Sokoto, or take it from Sokoto all the way to Borno.
Correct.
Right? That's behind you, right? You have Niger.
Correct. You have Chad.
That's Niger. Yes. You have Chad.
Yes. You have
those are two.
Yes, potential.
And those people are way poorer than you 10 times.
Correct. So it only makes sense that they won't.
And those people can walk in. In fact, you've intermarried.
It's
Do you understand? You're married. You have everything. It's not easy. That's why I say, when people say, "Oh, this was Zamfara, you will end it," I ask myself, "But how?" It's always easier not to start, because when you start, you may not be able to end. That's why the strategy should be prevent.
I see. I agree with you. I also agree with you. I said the same thing when the kidnapping problem started in Nigeria. I always said to people, there's no way you are going to be able to stop kidnapping. It's too lucrative if we're not careful. How do somebody kidnaps somebody and gets 15 million? Then you told him, oh, I don't want you to do that. I want you to go and learn carpentry or do bricklayer. It's not going to work.
For a poisoned mind, it's never going to work.
For a poisoned mind, it won't. So the best thing is you need to deal with it and kill the monster at the top. Anyway, I think it's a good discussion. Thank you for joining us for this session on the security. Next week, we'll be picking up another topic. I wanted us to discuss education, and subsequently, we'll also be discussing health issues. So thank you very much for this week, Elliot, and I'll speak with you again next week. All right.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Kula.
All right then. Cheers.